Hi guys, and welcome to the next video in the Flight Controller Therapy series. This is a series aimed primarily at new people to the RC hobby, answering or trying to answer potential questions that they may have and give a bit of information about flight controllers and the components that we use on them. So in this video, we'll be looking at GPS modules. And right, so what's a GPS module? It's a global positioning system module that listens to satellites orbiting the planet and uses the position of all the satellites to work out whereabouts the actual module is on the planet, how high it is, that sort of thing. That information is passed on to a flight controller, which can work out the speed we're going and the direction we're traveling in based on the history of the GPS. We can use it for quite cool things. And like, for example, when we arm the plane, it records the current GPS system. So if we press return to home, it will fly back to where we arm the plane. Stuff like if it knows which direction it's flying in, it can work out a heading. So when you use cruise, it locks it into that heading or flying in that direction. There's quite a few useful things for the GPS module. So what is it we're actually sticking on the plane? Well, that there is what we used to use. See, get a bit better lighting for you. There we go. So this here is an older GPS module. And I believe it's genuine U-blocks. We'll find out later. And as you can see, it's got an arrow for the forward direction, which means that it's got a compass built into it. So what we use more often these days is something like this. So if I stick it there, you can see it's about 18 centimeters square, which actually that would work out why it's called 180, wouldn't it? So yeah, there's a big size difference. Even the larger modules these days are a fair bit smaller. So I just grab this wing here, try and get it on the desk. This here is the 880, which is a cousin of the 180. This also has a magnetometer or compass built onto it. But as you can see, it's a fair size difference. You'll see that this is actually smaller once you take all the crap off of it. I've actually done that on one of my other models. So, forgetting the compass for a minute, these two will do exactly the same thing. They have an antenna which listens for signals coming from the satellites, which it then can triangulate and work out where it is, the altitude, all that good stuff. So one question that keeps on popping up is, will X GPS module work with my flight controller? And the short answer is probably. If it's a UART-based GPS, which utilizes a protocol that you can set in the configurator, there's no reason why it shouldn't work. So as you can see, this one has no magnetometer. So it just has a power, ground, and then 2 pins for the UART. So yeah, this one, where it has the magnetometer, will also have extra cables for the I2C port. But we'll go into that later. So the next question is, do I actually need a compass? And if you're using a quad, then yes. I mean, these videos are mainly for fixed wing, but if you're using a quad, then yes, you need a compass, because where a quad can hover, it needs something without movement to know which way it's facing. So yeah, if you've got a quad, get a compass. If you're using fixed wing, it's optional, I think is the best way to say it. A fixed wing should always be flying forwards to get lift. But if you've got strong wind, there are times when it could be blown backwards, in which case a compass would be helpful. It will also be it would know which way it's facing before it's actually launched. So stuff like auto launch may work better. So there are advantages to having the compass, and there is a bit more work in the setting up, but you know, it's your choice basically. So let's get on to the wiring up. For this, I'm going to use this old one because, in all honesty, I'm not going to use it on anything else because it's too big. So I'll keep it for my test rig. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wire it up with the magnetometer. So we've got it all wired up, and I'm going to wire it up onto this UART here, which is UART 4 on my flight controller, just because we have an I2C port right next to it. And potentially we may need to use the 3.3 volt, but we'll open it up and have a look. So with GPS modules, it's worth knowing the specs of them. We'll get into that more later, but if you've already got a wiring diagram, actually with these, it's better to take them apart and check the wiring. But for something like the BN180, I mean, I got this one off of Banggood, and it actually has a wiring diagram in the description, so that's all there. But what I found is you've got pins along the top, or in this here. Don't go by the wire colors, always go by the pin layout. And I can't remember what it is, but there's a light here which has got TX on it. I don't know, out of the UART, the TX is the one closest to the TX light, but there could be power in, before. So always check the wiring diagram before you wire these things up, and never just base it on the colors of the cables. So what we're going to do is open up this module here. And it's probably got a round board in it. On some of these, they actually had a square board, but where the screw holes are offset, I'm guessing it's got a round board in it. On the S800 I've just rebuilt, this was one of these types of GPS, but it was a square board. So I took that off and stacked it on top of a flight controller. Sets the screws out. There we go, round board. And yeah, it is a genuine, if I can get it to focus. There we go. You can see it's a genuine U-Blocks M8N chip. Yeah, and the genuine ones are usually better. But, right, so if you look here, we've got our wiring diagram. So now we could actually extend these out. Let's take this out. Because I'll show you. The other question that people always ask is which way up do they go? And on all these modules, whether it's this type or this type, they all go the same way up. And if I remove this, which, this was the top, you can see there's the antenna. So the antenna always goes to the top. But let's see if we can get these wires out. And a handy thing to do is just take a photo on your phone, and then you've got it for reference. So I think I'm going to do that quickly. It's worth noting on this one, there's actually two blacks. So there's this one here, which is this one, which is just looks like shielding. So there's that black, which is the ground. And then there's this other black, which is a more sort of normal smooth cable, which is the SDA for the I2C bus. Anyway, we've got our cables, so we can put this back together. Arrow for front, arrow for front. And luckily, this thing can only go back in one way. But yeah, if you've got, as I say, if you've got one with a GPS, you always need the arrow pointing forward. And then if you find that the compass is wrong, you'll modify that in iNav. Alright, so now we've got our module. We know what our wires are. I'm going to add, because I've added pins on this, because it is, like I said, a test flight controller. So I'm just going to add some servo plugs on. So I've got these here, which I'm going to put this freeway up the top for the I2C bus, and then there's another freeway which I'll put on the UART, and then the individual one I use for the ground. So let's get the receiver out of the way. Right, so let me just check the wiring diagram, but I'm pretty sure these two short ones here are I2C. Bollocks. Alright, so yeah, the black and the green here are the I2C bus, which we'll use for the... So we got SDA is the black, and SCL is the green. So let's just get those crimped on. What I should just say is, I've been talking about UART. So if you don't know what a UART is, I've got a video which I'll put the link for up here. So go check that out, and then you'll know what UARTs are. Right, so this here is our I2C bus. So I'm going to put those in. So it's data and clock, I think it stands for. And what I'm going to do is stick an orange, well, it doesn't matter what color it is, but I'm just going to stick a blank one in the end so we know which way round it is. And it will also grip better on that other pin. So that's that done. So the next we want is, we'll start with the UART. I'm going to trim these all down actually. No point in being that long. Right, so we're doing the receive first, which is obviously the TX on the GPS, which is yellow. Sorry, I need to get used to doing work further in. If you're only just watching this video and you've not seen the other ones, these crimp tools I got from Hobby King, and they're absolutely brilliant. Well worth the investment. Same with all the actual JST crimps. I got those from Hobby King too. They're, you know, reasonably priced. So just makes life so much easier for making up wiring harnesses. All right. So that is our TX that goes to RX. Then we need the orange, which is RX that goes to TX. Yeah, I've always just got in the habit of using the scalpel to cut the wires. It's probably not the best idea, so maybe don't copy that. But it's just the way I've always done it. See, I'm not cutting a lot off if it focuses. Probably about 5mm. Yeah, so this is just a shield from this wire, and they've just unwound it and just slipped some heat shrink over the top of it. So that's quite good because it means that everything in here is going to be shielded. so it shouldn't get interference or anything like that. There we go. We've got our wiring harness, so we can connect it up to the flight controller. So if you can see on there, I'll do this, put the ground on first, which is there. I mean, it could go to either of those two. That one. So you can get it there, so you can see the colors. So we have the TX from the GPS going to the RX on the flight controller, RX from the GPS going to the TX on the flight controller. We have a 5-volt out, which goes obviously to the VCC in on the GPS, and we've got ground here. That ground, it doesn't matter which of those two pins it goes on, it's the same thing. And then we have here our I2C bus, or I2C I think it is actually, and that will go in here. So we have the black wire, which you can barely see. The black goes to the data, green goes to clock, and this here is just to hold this in tighter, because it just goes over that 3.3 volt pin. If you really wanted to, you could cover that over with some hot glue just to make sure that there's nothing that gets contacted with. But where this is just a test rig, I don't really care. Right, so that is our GPS wired in, and the next thing to do is test it. So excuse me 1 second. I'll make some noise. This is quite handy for desk setups. It's just a 12 volt 3 amp AC adapter. I've just stuck an XT60 on the end of it, so I don't need to grab a battery. I can just use this. I use this to power my video receivers when I'm testing FPV stuff usually. Sorry about the noise. Because one thing that we do need to say is, with the GPS, you need to plug it into your battery. Obviously, I've not got it plugged in yet. It won't get any power, so it won't work unless you've got it plugged into the battery. So what we'll do is I'll grab the USB, and then that cable's handy. There we go. Focus. Not you really need to see it, but it would be nice to. Get rid of that. Right, so if I head over, right, there we go. So if we connect on here, what we need to do first of all is go to our ports, and we've connected our GPS to UART 4. So we go GPS and save and reboot. So I'll just confirm that's on there. You may need to adjust this on some modules. I'd just leave it as standard and it seems to work fine. But what we'll go into next is configuration. And down here underneath receiver, we have GPS. So we turn that on. And what we've got here is protocol and disabled. Now for older stuff like this U-Blocks module, we'll just leave that on U-Blocks. There's, as I said at the beginning, if you've got other types of GPS modules, you may just need to use one of these different protocols here to get it working. But with this module and the B10, like the BN180s, BN880s, BN220s, all that sort of stuff, you'll mostly use U-Blocks, or try with the newer stuff, try U-Blocks 7 because it's faster. But for this one, I'm pretty sure it would just be U-Blocks. And what we also have here is ground assistance type. Now, it's disabled or auto detect. Usually it's on auto detect. But what I would recommend is, unless you travel to different countries all the time, set it to your region. So I'm going to set this one to Europe, because it increases the accuracy of the altitude detection. And also, I believe, I mean, it may be a placebo, but I think that it's quicker to get satellites when this is enabled. But as I say, that could be purely placebo effect. But it definitely does help with altitude, and it makes it more accurate. So once we've got those, we can do save and reboot. One thing I'm going to add while this is saving and rebooting is there's something else that we can add to speed up the satellite detection in some areas. And it also depends on the GPS module itself. So make sure you check the description of the GPS module. And what you're looking for is that it can understand Galileo satellites. If it can, what we can do is add a line of code into the CLI and save that. It will enable Galileo satellites, and then it will be able to click, it has access to more satellites, so it'll be able to find them quicker. And it's just a really good system to use. It's more up to date. So yeah, I'll put the line of code in the description, but on with the video. What I probably should have done is left this out of the case, because then would have seen a little LED on it. But if we go into GPS now, nothing will happen because we've not plugged in the power. So there we go. Oh, we got a little little LED on it anyway. So there we go. So if you look on the screen here, you can see this number here, total messages, is going up. If your GPS module is working, you'll have two things. You'll have this light in blue, and this number will go up. If you're not getting any satellites, don't worry. If this number is going up, it will work. A lot of people look at the screen, say, I'm not getting any satellites, what's going wrong? And if this is going up, absolutely nothing. If you're indoors, yeah, that's what's wrong. It's nothing to do with the GPS, it is working. And what you'll find is that, I mean, this, I don't know how long this has been sat in a drawer for. So it will take longer because it has, I can't remember what it's called now, but there's like I don't know, effectively a list of satellites that's stored on the module, and it will need to update that. The longer it's been left not being connected, the longer it will take to update. No, sorry, my mind's gone completely blank to that word. But yeah, if that total messages is going up, it's working fine. If total messages isn't going up, the first thing I would check is that you've got the RX and TX the correct way around, because that's usually what the problem is. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to try changing it to U-Block 7, see if it works. You can see on here the update time is at 5 Hertz. So if I go into here, we'll just try it. It's not going to kill it if it doesn't work. We'll do save and reboot. So it's now at 10 Hertz, and update messages is still working. So that seems to be fine. So we'll leave that on U-Block 7. So yeah, there's not really a lot left to do with this. We've just got to wait, see if it updates and see if it gets any satellites. So what else might stop it working? Well, as I said, you need the power from the battery plugged in. If you haven't got that, it won't work. So check that, and then check, if it's still not working, check the RX and TX. If they're correct, check for something on like that may be causing interference. Some people have found with like split cameras, like the Cadex Tarsia and the Runcam split, stuff like that. If the GPS module is quite close to that camera, they will not get any signal. You can see we've got 4 satellites now. So there you go, it's working. There was a guy, I think Giz FPV, and he had Tarsier. I can't remember what it was in. It might have been his Nano Goblin. But yeah, or his AXN, something like that. But he had a Tarsier and the GPS wouldn't connect until he disconnected the Tarsier. Once he found out, once it was connected and had satellites, he could reconnect the Tarsier, and it would be okay. But yeah, if you've got one of those cameras, try unplugging that first and seeing if the GPS works or not. All right, so what I'm now going to do is go to configuration, and what we'll have a look at is magnetometer. So we stick that on auto, do a save and reboot. And it's picked up the magnetometer in our module. Now, as I said, what you'll probably find is this mag alignment. What you'll need to do is do a 180 flip, because the chip for the magnetometer is on the bottom, so it needs to be flipped 180, and it should then all be fine. So if we do that, and you can see up here our mag is blue, so it's happy, it's communicating. So compass is not calibrated, so where do we do that? I must admit, I've not actually done this bit yet. But you can see our GPS is working fine. We've got a 3D fix. We've got 5 satellites. It knows my GPS coordinates. If I go in the map, or if I go back in GPS, it's picked up where I'm sat. So yeah, that's all working. And I'm actually in, I've got a window just over there, and that's it. It's a brick building, so that's actually working pretty well. But what I'll do now, let's go. So there you go. You go in compass calibration. So after pressing the button, you have 30 seconds to hold the copter in the air and rotate it so each side is facing up, down, left, right, all that rubbish. So what we'll do is we'll click calibrate compass. So we want that upside down, that. I mean, obviously this will have to be done when you're in a model. And I believe there is a gimbal shortcut to actually enable the calibration mode. This takes ages. There we go. Right, so that's now calibrated. So if I do a save and reboot, get our flight controller back. We go to setup, compass calibrated. So that's all happy. Now the only thing that I haven't gone over, oh, so there you go. You can see it's rotating. So it's got that, but it's using the compass to get the heading that we're facing in, as well as it's got it, it's got you all here. So yeah, that's what I mean by, like, if you're using auto launch, until the plane's actually moving forward, it doesn't know which direction it's facing in. So that's sometimes why you could maybe walk out somewhere, throw it, and the plane just starts going in a completely different direction. With, a compass hooked up, it knows which way it's facing. So when you auto launch, it will carry on in that direction. Which I've actually put the GPS on my S800, so I will be trying that stuff out. But as I say, there will be a gimbal combination, which I will find out for you. But also, I believe on my website, so I'll go to my website, and I've got this multifunctional momentary switch, which basically the switch in the top shoulder, I've got it so that you can hold it, it will beep, and then you can let go and it will do that option. So yeah, so one of the things I put on there is calibrate the compass. So what you would do is, if you put this all in, you would hold the switch in, and when it will beeps twice, you let go and it will enter the calibrate compass mode. And then that's when you do about 30 seconds to orientate it in every direction. So yeah, if you're interested in that, Mr.D-RC.com, and then you'll be able to find that information out. The only thing that as I say, that I haven't done with this is looked in the goggles to find out that north is facing north. So for that, you'll obviously need a regular compass, put it in north, make sure that when that is facing north, the regular compass is facing north. And then when you rotate it, it goes the right way. If not, you'll need to change this here. But usually flip 180 will be correct. But yeah, if that's not right, then you'll need to change this here. I can't actually show that because I've not got a VRX on here, or a VTX. So I have no OSD or anything like that set up at the moment. So otherwise I would have shown that. But as I say, that will be simple. You just put it in the same direction as the compass, rotate it. If it's not right, then you change this until it's right. But yeah, then everything should be fine. There's no heading thing on here, is there? No. So yeah, unfortunately, that's the only thing I can't really show you. But as you can see, it's pretty simple to set up, and there's not really a lot that can go wrong with a GPS. There are usually a lot of questions on them, usually about, can I use this type? And the answer is usually yes. Which way up does it go? Which we know now is antenna up every time. If it's not got a magnetometer, it doesn't matter which way round it goes, as long as that is facing up. If it's got a magnetometer, the arrow has to point forwards. Other than that, it's simple UARTs. If not, maybe try interference and make sure it's powered on. GPSs are pretty basic. So I think I'm going to wrap the video up there. If you've got any questions, leave them in the comments, and I'll get back to you. Don't forget, there's the Fixed Wing RC Rebels group on Facebook, which can help out with stuff like this too. And also the iNav Fixed Wing group on Facebook. I'll put links to both of them in the description. So thank you very much for your time. Hope the video was useful. And don't forget to fly it like you stole it.